Good morning. This is a public hearing of the Chatham Conservation Commission being held on Wednesday, August 12th, 2020, in accordance with the provisions of the Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Town of Chatham Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Chapter 272. It is being broadcast live on Channel 18 and is being recorded for the archives. My name is Janet Williams, and as Chair of the Conservation Commission, I'm opening this hearing at 9:01 a.m. A couple of announcements before we get started. Since the start of the emergency period on March 10th, the Commission has scheduled applications for hearings in the order in which those applications have been received. I'm exercising the authority conferred on me by Section 17B5 of the Act of 2020 as Chair of the Conservation Commission to declare that the following applications have been scheduled for a hearing on September the 9th. 27 Windsong Landing, 809 Fox Hill Road, 95 Skyway, and 95 Skyway, the second project. So those will be held September 9th. In addition, because our hearing next week is, on August 26th is very full already, September 2nd is the next scheduled work session, and our hearing date of September 9th is also very full. The Commission has decided to schedule an extra hearing date this month, which will be a week from today on Wednesday, August 19th. On that day, we're going to continue any matters that are not resolved today in the hopes of resolving them and moving forward toward making a decision and preparing and reviewing orders of condition at the September 2nd work session. So if we don't finish today, we'll be continuing to next Wednesday, the 19th. If that date is no good, we'll talk about it on a case-by-case basis. We'll have to schedule it for later in September. In addition to the continuances that will happen today, we received one field change request that we have also added to the agenda for August 19th, and that is 889 Orleans Road. Today's hearing is being conducted by remote teleconference pursuant to Governor Baker's emergency orders prohibiting the gathering of groups of people. Every effort's been made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. The agenda and copies for documents of today have been posted. A reminder, everybody watching on Channel 18 who would like to participate in the meeting while it's in progress may do so by calling the phone number that's displayed at the top of the screen. If and when you do, and to all participants who are currently gathered here, please mute yourselves to turn off any background noise. You may unmute when you wish to speak. If you're on the phone, you mute and unmute by hitting *6. We're also asking today for folks who are here to keep their cameras turned off, to keep the internet connection as strong as we possibly can. I'll be turning mine off in a moment. As we go through each matter, I'll ask for comments and questions first from commissioners and then from participants. Please indicate you wish to speak if you're a participant by unmuting yourself, stating your name and that you wish to make a comment or ask a question, and then wait to be recognized. So that we have a record of the quorum of commission members attending today, I'm now going to ask each commission member to indicate their presence on this call by unmuting and stating their name and present. Commissioner Walls.
Present.
Commissioner Del Vecchio.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Clark.
Clark, present.
Thank you. Commissioner Kitts is absent today. So with the four of us, we do have a quorum. We do have two continuance requests for this morning. So if you are here for the following applications, they are not going to be heard today. 83 Seagull Road, 30 Wickies Way, 0 to Squantum, 27, 59, 75, and 97 to Lippy Run, all AKA Outermost Harbor Marina, has been continued. And 305 Main Street has also been continued. So those will not be heard today. And with that, Paul Whiteman is sitting in for Callie Harper today as agent.
Excuse me, Janet.
Yes, Mary.
The continuance date for the last one you just said, you didn't mention.
We'll vote on that, but Main Street is continued to October 14th. And outermost is continued to September 9th.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, Paul, you ready to go with the first item on the agenda?
Good morning, Madam Chairman. Yes, I am. I will read the public notice. Amendment to Order of Conditions, 190 Stage Island Road, Deborah A. Phillips, 201, revocable trust owner, Deborah A. and Daniel D. Phillips, Junior trustees. The DEP number on this is SE10-3399, Phase 2. Requests to amend existing order of conditions under SE10-3399 to include an addition of 40 linear feet of a choir roll erosion control project at 190 Stage Island Road, Assessors Map 13A-1, Parcel D150.
All right, thank you, Paul.
Welcome.
Madam Chairman, Bob Perry here. Can you hear me?
Yes, Bob, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you again. I'll make it brief. We reviewed this with you back in the spring as the first step for the amendment process. And I think it's fair to say that I think Teresa Sprague may be on this call, but at any rate, I thought the installation of the fiber roll that was the primary project went very, very well. And toward the end of that installation, there was an apparent observed need to extend those fiber rolls, and therefore a 40-foot extension was proposed on the north end of the array that was installed. That ran into, the COVID-19 hearing trouble, and we ran into the spring weather, which caused for the project to cease, and the amendment just sat there, and here we are today talking about it. It's very basic. It's just a 40-foot extension of the project that was already installed. There's a few things about it that are different, where we're going to taper the cross-section, but the work would be carried out very much the same, except that it's far, far smaller in scale than the original project. And the vegetation management would be identical to the management that's ongoing today. I don't believe there's that much vegetation that would be installed there because the upper bank hasn't collapsed fully. And I think that's all I could say to you, is that we're planning on getting something done as soon as the weather permits, and it would be a far smaller effort than what you've seen there in the past. So with that, I'd be happy to take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Oh, Janet, just Teresa Sprague is also.
Good morning, Teresa.
Morning. I'm happy to answer any questions about the original installation of the fiber roll array, the plantings, et cetera. If any of the commissioners have been out, you'll see that the drought has not necessarily been kind to this bank, but the plants are hanging on and keeping our fingers crossed for some rain. The property owners have been reluctant to water more heavily because they don't want to cause any erosion from the top down. So we've been trying to encourage them to increase the water a little bit at a time. The array that's in there covered, the beach grass has actually done phenomenally well, that we used to cover over the array that was installed. We did lose a little bit of sand after we had already buttoned everything up, but so we know we're going to have to do a little bit of sand nourishment in the fall. Again, when we bring the machinery and the equipment down to do this particular extension, we'll do some sand nourishment at the same time of the array that was installed last spring.
Okay, thank you. All right, open up to questions from commissioners.
Yeah.
Commissioner Clark?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Bob.
I was just looking at the notes for the revised planning plan. It doesn't mention any removal. It mentions pruning if needed. I just want to confirm that nothing is slated to be removed while extending the array.
That's correct.
Yeah, I know. Hi, Teresa. The extent of any removal is whatever slides or collapsed roots are in the way of the installation. But very minimal from my understanding. Teresa?
Yes, that's correct. And actually, there's you can see that the area where we're had proposed to move that array down into, or extend the array down into, and I'm just pulling up photos that I'm seeing right now. I'm sorry that you're not able to see them, from that we took when we finished the project last spring. There's just a small extension of an area. There was no vegetation in that area. There had been some scour, and given the extent of the project, we just wanted to make sure that we covered that additional scour area so we're not causing more scour in the future. So there was some scour there previously, not as severe as what we had seen. And as Bob pointed out, there was no slumping in that area. So we just want to be proactive.
Okay. One more question, and the amendment talks about next season. By next season, what do we mean by next season?
Well, I believe we're talking, so when we originally made the request to amend, it was just as we were finishing up the project. And of course, at the time, everything was shut down due to the COVID-19 pandemic issue. So next season was this fall, which I'm presuming is the same time period. So we had filed in, I believe, Bob, was this filed in April?
Excuse me?
Was this request to amend filed last April?
I'm still not hearing. I'm so sorry. Tell me that again.
Oh, no. Was this request to amend filed last April?
Oh, yes.
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 Yeah.
Okay, so we meant the next work season, so after the summer season's over, so late fall.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Is that it, Bob?
Yep, that's it.
Okay, Tom, you had a question?
Yeah, I just was wondering if there is any problems with the stability of the pool or the patio about it.
Well, we're not near the pool. We've finished that area. That's just being managed with vegetation now. I was very impressed with the way this job was done, and they're pretty much finished with that end.
Well, my question was a little bit more specific, which was, is there any evidence of any lack of stability with the pool or the patio?
I have not seen this site in several months, and I don't believe there is, because we concluded there was the concern for that pool was more hyperbolic than it truly was, and I don't believe there's any stability, but I haven't seen it lately.
Mr. Clark, I can report that there is none. There was no additional slumping with the fiber roll installation. We were able to support that upper area that had not slumped, which was our biggest concern. Was if that area were to have slumped, there may have been some concerns, but we were able to get the array installed and fill that area right up, so there's no concern of that area slumping.
Thank you. That's great to hear.
Good.
Yeah, I have
Any
a
other-
question for Teresa.
Sorry, hold on, Bob. Any other
Yeah.
questions, Tom?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. All right, Bob, go ahead.
Teresa, you're going to be planting new vegetation above the extension. Do you have any concerns about planting in a drought?
I am very concerned about this year's drought for this site and many others. I am glad we did plant some additional plants in the spring, and of course we are now just watering and supporting the plants we had put in previously. One of the things I've been concerned about here is because of the drought, we've had little germination. Of course, that seed is just sitting there dormant, waiting for some water. The one thing that has done incredibly well, which does not mind drought conditions, is beach grass, American beach grass. So that's filling in this area and really doing a good job kind of holding the sand over the fiber rolls themselves. We have had multiple discussions with the Phillipses about the need for water when we're in a situation like this. When we do this additional work, we'll wait until late fall to plant. But given the fact that I think we're going to see these kinds of conditions regularly over the next however long this weather pattern lasts through the next few summers, I think it's going to be really important to get water on this bank to get these plants established. It's a very sunny bank. You can see around the corner at 112 and 126 Stage Island Road where it's quite shady. The vegetation there is doing incredibly well, but this bank is exposed to a lot of sun, a lot of wind. And so, yes, drought definitely concerns me, and we're definitely continuing to support the Phillipses in their understanding of needing to use water just to get the plants established.
Okay, so it won't receive any new plants until late fall.
Correct. We're not at this point. I'm guessing, unless the weather changes significantly, the weather patterns, that we're going to be looking at a mid to late October planting.
And you think it'll be stable until then?
Yeah, absolutely. It is completely stable right now. The beach grass is actually doing a phenomenal job. We were able to get the beach grass in as bare root just at the very end of the season for planting bare root beach grass, and it took off phenomenally well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, thanks, Bob. Does anybody else have any questions? Any participants have any questions? Bob Perry, I have one question for you. As I read the narrative, the request, so the height that's shown, the elevation, the I guess it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rolls, is that the same? And how does it taper? And
Well, the rolls are in 10-foot lengths, and the only thing going on here is there's a minor effort to, as you know, reduce the cross section of the entire array as it gets closer to the termination of it. So it's an imperfect system because they're cylinders and they are not fully round, so the drawings are often stylized, but the intent is to drop the top elevation a couple of feet by reducing a couple of rolls, because at that angle we'll probably drop it by 2 feet by taking 2 rolls out. So the last 10 feet will simply be 2 less rolls than, or likely to be 2 less rolls, and that's all it is a taper.
okay, so it's the last 10 feet is where that taper, and it tapers by 2 rolls.
Yes, it is possible to cut these things, but we try not to. So you tend to leave them in their store-bought condition. So that's what's going on. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions?
May I ask you a question, Madam Chairman? I
Yes.
was not hearing at the beginning. Did 809 Fox Hill Road get set for a future date?
809 Fox Hill Road will be heard on September 9th.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Okay, we're back on here. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. All right, if there are no further questions or comments, is there anything further that any commissioners need? Is there any reason to continue this to a hearing date next week? Hearing none, is there then a motion to continue this to the work session on September 2nd?
Bob Rawls, motion to continue to the work session on September 2nd.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Clark seconds.
You're it today, Tom. Okay, roll call vote to continue this to September 2nd. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Unanimous. We'll see you all on September 2nd to review the order of conditions, the amended order. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Okay, Paul, what's next?
Madam Chairwoman, next are the notice of intent, 24 Cedar Street, Richard and Nancy Bowman, SE 10. Mary, do we have a DEP file number on this yet?
I did not see one, but I'll check again.
Okay, I'll just continue with the announcement. The project is proposed construction of an addition to a single-family home, a detached garage and driveway at 24 Cedar Street, Assessors Map 14C, Parcel 1.
Okay, do we have representatives on the call today, please?
Yeah, David Clark here.
Good morning, David.
Good morning. As Paul stated, we're looking to build an addition to an existing single-family home and a detached garage, all within the buffer zone to a watering vegetated wetland. The vegetated wetland is an old cranberry bog that has a discharge culvert that goes out to Oyster Pond on the neighboring property. This project started out as strictly an addition or expanded living space to the dwelling. We looked at several scenarios of how to get the homeowner some more living space. Unfortunately, most of the additions that were proposed were all within the no disturb zone. So we looked a little harder to try to avoid any disturbance in the no disturb zone. And so what we're doing is converting the garage into living space and putting a small addition on the north side. Because we're losing the garage space, we're requesting to build a detached garage at the north end of the property. The reason why it's so far away from the house is, again, we're trying to avoid the no disturb zone and also meet the zoning setbacks. Most of the construction is all within a lawn area. 4 pitch pines are proposed to be removed for the driveway to get into the detached garage. At the end of the day, there is an increase in structure and impervious or semi-pervious surfaces of 1,205 square feet. The applicant's got Phil Cheney on board to do a mitigation plan, which has also been provided. And I'm not sure if Phil is here today, but that's pretty much it.
Phil Cheney is here.
Okay. If there's any questions on the additions on the garage, I'll be happy to answer them.
All right, thank you, David. Let's hear from Phil first, and then we'll.
Did you hear the address when you started this thing?
Very good. Good morning, Phil Cheney here. You have the mitigation plan. We worked up
Phil,
here
Phil,
for.
I'm going to interrupt you one second, Phil, and ask once again for people who are not speaking to please mute themselves. We're getting some background noise. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Phil. Sorry about that.
Very good. Yes, I've worked up a mitigation plan, which I believe you have.
Yep.
In front of you. Okay. Yep. I'm just losing it. Okay. I don't see it on the screen yet. So.
Yeah, the screen, we have the site plan. So.
Gotcha. Okay.
But we have received the mitigation plan.
There we go. Okay. Thank you.
Ah, perfect.
Yeah. So. Yes, I've worked as much to get a healthy planting area. I've got a total of, checking my numbers here, yes, 1,486 square feet of planting along the edge of the resource area as best we can. We're fairly tight to the house towards the street, but we still managed to get a strip there where it's a fairly high erodible bank. So we're able to get 617 square feet of planting along that area to fill a gap. In between the 2 green mitigation areas you see is a really mature spruce tree, which is doing fine and pretty much prevents any new planting underneath it. So we have to the north a broader area of planting, which would also displace an existing vegetable garden, which would be underneath that green area now and is being relocated a little bit to the north and east. As far as we can get it outside of the disturbed zone, but still have light to be a functional vegetable garden. I've got replacement trees. I've got 1 white pine and 3 red swamp maples scheduled to go on the property to replace the pitch pines that are being removed for the sake of the driveway. And I think that covers it in general.
Okay. All right, thank you, Phil. Questions from commissioners?
Bob Rawls, I have a few.
Okay, Bob.
There's just a few things I can't find so far, and that is, for example, the 50-foot and 100-foot lines are not, I think I know what they are, but they're not, to my knowledge, labeled as 5100 on the plans, unless I'm missing
David Clark here. They're on the plan, but I see your point. They're not labeled. So the 50-foot line, you look at the west face of the garage is right on the line, and the 100-foot line is pretty much off the property to the east. That's that heavy long dash dot line.
So David,
Yeah,
can you look for both the site plan and the mitigation plan, so we have those of record?
Yes.
Okay.
I will add that to my plan and get that filed.
Thank you. Go ahead, Bob. Sorry.
You know, while we're talking about the plans, I also don't see stamps. So it'll be a good opportunity to stamp the next ones. And
stamp plans were submitted, hard copies. The digital copies don't have stamps on them.
they don't show them. Okay. Is that? I thought I'd seen digital copies before with stamps showing. So I don't know what's going on there. In other cases.
Yeah, we've run into this a couple of times now. I don't know why on digital copies it sometimes, more often than not, doesn't show up. I'm mystified.
Okay.
Just for the record, I have copies of stamp plans here in the office.
Okay, that's good to know.
Plan is dated April 6th, 2020.
Okay.
All right. I do see what I think are some minor discrepancies in coverage calcs on the site plan versus the planting plan. Planning plan shows plus 16 square feet in the NDZ, whereas the site plan doesn't. So, I think it'd be good to get those two in sync. It's probably not wildly significant, whichever way it falls down.
Well, it's a little significant, I would say, Bob, because even a minor incursion into the NDZ would need to be looked at. They're also not the same as the coverage table that's in the narrative.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's my fault. David Clark here. That's my fault. We initially proposed the garage so that 16 square feet of it was over the NDZ line. And we sent that to Phil. We forgot to send Phil the revised plan because we didn't want to ask the commission for any additional coverage in the NDZ. So I will get Phil the proper plan and we'll make that correction.
Thank you.
Okay, good. So on the planting plan, it indicates there's a demarcation for the northern area of mitigation, but I don't know that I found something like that for the southern mitigation area. And so it'd be good to make that more clear on the map. There should be a demarcation for both of them.
I can certainly add that to the plan if you wish.
Yeah, would it be similarly split rail fence for that part as well?
Yes, I mean, if maybe stone bounds would work there better. I just don't want to crowd the passageway too much, but either could work.
Whatever it is that you see fit there. On the vegetable garden, so when it's relocated, it is going to be partway in the NDZ, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yeah, and I've actually made this point about another application in the past where a vegetable garden, if it is not an organic garden, can be a great source of pesticides and various poisons depending on how the person gardens. And so since this garden is being moved, it would be good, in my opinion, that there be a stipulation that this not receive pesticides, not receive inorganic fertilizers. And if the applicant is not used to gardening that way, I can assure you that that's the way I garden and it works great. But since it's in the NDZ, it really does need to be pesticide free.
I certainly understand that concern.
Okay, that'll be in the order, we'll stipulate that in the order of conditions.
And on the 4 trees being added, I'm not sure I understand where they're going.
Okay, I've got, yes, I have 3. They're not in the green areas. They are located in the vicinity of the proposed driveway where the pines would be coming out.
I see.
Okay.
Got it.
You can see the labels in the center there.
Oh, right, now I see it. Okay, now I see it.
Red maple, white pine, yep.
Okay, very good. And that's all I have.
All right, thanks, Bob. Other commissioners, questions?
Clark has a few questions.
Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, I'm looking at the site plan, and the one that's labeled proposed addition, is that the garage that you're talking about? And is the garage in existence there? And then you're going to be putting like what used to be sometimes referred to as a granny quarters on top of it?
No.
I'm trying to understand what that proposed addition is comprised of.
So you see the existing paved driveway, that's the entrance into the garage, so that addition is the single car garage. So that garage space is going to be converted to living space and an addition proposed on the north side of it. So it'll be a frost wall, 4-foot excavation, and then living space built on top of that.
Are you building a new garage for the property?
Yes, that's the detached garage on the north side.
The north side.
Up the upper end of the property.
Okay, I have to admit that with my poor eyesight, I'm not really focusing on the garage. Is that the looks like a square on top of a rectangle at the upper end? But
yep. So the heavy line is the footprint of the new garage workshop, and the lighter hatched line underneath is the shed that's going to be removed.
Okay, thank you. I had some concerns about, well, a couple of things. You touched upon it, which is, I think you're saying, or you recognize that the table that is submitted on page 7 of 8 of the materials, that's the note there that you're going to add 878 square feet of structure within the no disturb zone, that was an oops?
I don't see what you're referring to. Hold on a second. I'm looking.
It's the letter from you to the Conservation Commission dated April 28th, 2020. And on page 7, there's a table of the number of square feet being added and subtracted. And at the very top of it, you'll notice within the 50-foot no disturb zone, there's for the section labeled area of structures under proposed square feet is the number 878.
Oh, that is a mistake. Let's see. That 878 should be over to the left and under existing. Actually, it should be added to the left under existing. So, and what's being proposed is still 878. So the net change is 0. So the bottom line is that the net change is 0. We're not proposing anything new, but 878 square feet will remain in the no disturb zone. So I will fix that. So
all right, but that's 878 square feet of existing structure on the premises.
yes.
Okay. The one other concern I had, somewhat building off of Bob's comments, was that a lot of the work here, the garage, workshop, the additional expansion of the living quarters are right on the border of the no disturb zone. And which is something I have to admit I see a lot in this job. And my concern is that, especially given you had a comment on page 4 of your, let's see, it's dated April 28th, 2020. You say in your review of the project, no permanent alteration is proposed within the 50 feet of the BVW. And the only reason that turned on a light bulb in my head, because it doesn't matter, at least as I read the law, it doesn't matter whether it's permanent or temporary. An intrusion into the no disturb zone is still an intrusion. And just because I know the chair likes me to explain my legal reasoning, if you look at the definition of the no disturb zone in bylaw 272-2, you see that it says that there's no substantial activity to occur there. And then if you look at regulation 1.04 for a definition of activity, it includes any form of, among other things, erection, reconstruction, expansion of buildings or structures, construction of roads and other ways, installation of drainage, sewage, and water systems, and so on. So it's not, you don't have to have anything permanent within the no disturb zone, which I would be flabbergasted if you weren't aware of that, because you are so well informed about this. And so my concern then is, what steps are you going to take to assure that I don't think it's possible that nobody's going to cross into the no disturb zone in the course of constructing the garage and the additional living quarters, since they're right butted up against it. I mean, people are going to walk around, they're going to be doing their work and all that kind of stuff. And that's something you haven't taken into account at all in your project description. Or for that matter, in measures that you would institute that would prevent that from happening.
Okay. So as far as David Clark here, as far as the addition to the dwelling on the north side of the garage, that is entirely out of the no disturb zone. There's no reason to excavate within the no disturb zone to execute that portion of the project. I could put a work limit line on there to ensure, like a short row of hay bales or construction fencing right on the no disturb zone line, and extend that to the north by, as far as the commission wants, to ensure that none of the construction activity goes over the line.
Okay, now let's go to the garage and workshop at the north end.
Yep. So we expect that we will need 10 feet into the no disturb zone to execute that portion of the project. So there will be disturbance of the lawn area in order to construct this garage. So if the commission wants us to ask for a variance to temporarily disturb the lawn, I can add that to the project.
Well, speaking only personally, that I would think that would be necessary to proceed. Have you thought about moving the garage, since there does seem to be some space in there, perhaps move it 10 feet to the east, let us say, I'm just picking a number arbitrarily, in order to avoid any intrusion into the no disturb zone?
We did look at that. We are right up tight against the setback requirement on the east side, so we can't move the building to the east. So I'd be happy to file a request for a variance to temporarily disturb the area.
Well, if you're not going to move it, then I think you have to do that. That is, you need to seek a variance because you will be temporarily, at the very least, temporarily intruding into the no disturb zone.
Well, question, Bob Rawls. David, did you say the disturbed area is lawn?
Yes.
All right, so.
Cape Cod lawn.
Yeah. So in practical terms, we're not really disturbing, we're disturbing in an already disturbed area. So from my perspective, this is not, as long as you have reasonable silt fencing, I don't see how it could impact anything other than already disturbed areas.
Well, I think the order of conditions can be written in a way to ensure that whatever disturbance is associated with the construction is remediated so that at the end of the construction, so that the no disturb zone is returned to its pre-construction condition. But at the same time, I do think that Tom is correct, legally speaking, that even a temporary incursion into the NDZ will require a variance. So David, if you can add that to your list, we'll vote on that.
And I show the work limit 10 feet off the building face. I will speak to the general contractor to see if we can tighten that up because it's not going to be a full foundation, obviously, just 4 feet of foundation for frost protection. We might be able to tighten that up.
Okay. And all the access will be off of the existing right of way.
Yes.
Okay. Tom, other questions or comments?
No, that's it.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Other commissioners, questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes, Bob, go ahead.
For Phil.
Yes.
The mitigation area to the north on the other side of the spruce, there's a lot of bittersweet wanting to grow out of the ground. Wondering what you're going to do about that before you plant.
Okay, and I apologize since I haven't looked at that spot in about 6 months now.
It was winter.
I don't think there's too much in that exact area where that's going, perhaps a little bit on the very northerly end. But certainly, doing a cut and swipe on any bittersweet we find in that area, if there's any other invasives, would be, a prerequisite for getting these plantings in.
Okay, and so we can add that to the OOC going forward.
Yes.
Another thing was the mitigation area to the south of the spruce. There are some existing arborvitaes and some other plants, the mimosa tree and so forth. Those are going to remain?
I believe all of that is going to remain. I think there's one just south of the spruce, I think is a Rosa Sharon, an exotic ornamental, which may need to go to get that in there. But it's if I remember, a tired ornamental without much value.
Okay, and then you have a maple, a red maple, being substituted for the ornamental plant on the south of the front of the front yard and the front yard.
Yeah, I apologize. Apparently, the plan on the screen is a slightly different version than you might have received in paper form. Because I think that was the final revision. Yes, it's an exotic shrub in the front there, and the owners thought that putting one of the trees there as a replacement would be a good idea.
Do you think it may be too close to the house if you plant a red maple there?
Oh, not at all. No, plenty of room for that. We've got good space there.
Okay. I think that's all I had. Okay, thank you.
Very good.
All right, thank you, Bob. Any other questions or comments from anybody on the call? Okay, then, David, are you going, and Phil, are you available next Wednesday if we continue this to get these pieces put together and complete it?
Yes, I am,
Steve,
Phil Cheney.
I can get you the revisions on the plan and
Yep.
the variance by the end of the week. It
Okay.
won't be your typical 1 week request to have it before the meeting, but if the commission is fine with that, I can.
We're fine with that since we're the ones who scheduled the hearing within a week of the scheduling. So, yep, that's fine. So just to review, so you're going to correct and conform all the figures on the site plan and the mitigation plan, identify the 50 and 100 boundary lines, add a work limit line as close to the NDZ line as possible, add a request for a variance, and ensure that the mitigation plan the commission has is the most recent and correct version. That's what I've got.
Yes, Phil Cheney here. Once I have the revised site plan from David, I can revise my plan, resubmit the PDF on that, and I assume you'd want a couple of hard copies as well?
Yes, please. Mary, how many hard copies are we collecting these days?
We just need 2 for the file because everybody else will receive it electronically.
Is that okay with all commissioners to receive a digital copy only, or does anybody want a hard copy?
I'd like a hard copy, please.
Okay, then make 4 in case somebody else wants one.
Very good. I'll provide 4 hard copies.
Thank you.
And Janet, just that Rosa Sharon has to be identified to be removed too on the mitigation plan.
Okay. Did you get that?
I'll take a look and confirm that.
Okay, thank you. All right, then. With that, we'll take a motion to continue this to August 19th. Is there a motion?
Bob Rawls' motion to continue to August 19th.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Clark, second.
Thank you. Roll call vote to continue to August 19th. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Del Vecchio.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Continue to August 19th. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, Paul, moving on to the next one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You want me to read the entire
Yeah,
announcement of this?
unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's fine.
We'll all take a nap.
It's a notice of intent for 83 Seagull Road, 30 Wickus Way, parcel N133, aka 0, to Squantum Road, 27, 59, 75, and 97, Tillipy Run, Seagull Enterprises, LLC, USA Weather Station / U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Codesset Associates, Inc., New Milford Realty Corporation, 59 Tillipy Trust, Chatham Seabreeze, LLC, and Trust, 97 Tillipy Nominee Trust. The DE file number is SE10-3424. The project, proposed dredging and sand placement at 83 Seagull Road, 30 Wickus Way, parcel 1 and 133, AK 0, to Squantum Road, 27, 59, 75, and 97. Tillipy Run, assessors map parcels 15A-1, H98, 15A-2, N133, 15A-1, US1, 15A3, N136, 15A3N137 and 14A3N11. Final is 14A3B. The applicants requested a continuance to September 9th, 2020.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the request for a continuance to September 9th?
Bob Rawls, motion to continue to September 9th.
Thank you.
Clark, second.
Thank you. Roll call vote to continue to September 9th. Commissioner Rawls,
Aye.
Delvecchio,
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
I vote aye as well, unanimous to continue to September 9th. All right. Next, Paul.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 33 Honeysuckle Lane South, Daniel S. Smythe, SE10. I don't have a DEP file number on it. Proposed installation of six utility poles within road layout. Proposed installation of 1 utility pole and underground electrical service to 33 Honeysuckle Lane, assesses map 13A, parcel A3, and road layout.
Hi, good morning. Stephanie Sequin with Roder and Wilcox. I'm representing Dan and Roz Smythe. Mr. Smythe, Dan is here attending as well. The project is the installation of 7 utility poles and overhead electric service to provide electric service to the existing house at 33 Honeysuckle Lane South, which is at the very end of Honeysuckle Lane South. The house was built in the 50s. Currently, the electric service comes from Champlain Road. It comes overhead across private property to a pole that is also on private property. And from that pole goes, I believe, underground to the back of the house. It has, I was reading in my narrative, I said recently came to the attention of the Smythes. It was actually more, I think 5 or 10 years ago that this has been going on. The current service was installed without a legal easement for any of the poles or any of the wires that exist. The Smythes have been in lengthy discussion with the private property owners and have repeatedly been informed that there is no legal easement. The current owners are not willing to grant an easement, and therefore they have had to investigate an alternate source of providing the electric service. And they have again been in extensive discussions with Eversource, who has sort of exhausted all other options and came up with the only viable option is to extend the existing overhead wires that come partway from Champlain Road or from Stage Harbor Road down partway to along Honeysuckle Lane, to extend those overhead wires the rest of the way down Honeysuckle Lane and Honeysuckle Lane South to the north side of the existing building. So Eversource, their installation specialists, came up with a conceptual plan and placed stakes within the road layout of Honeysuckle Lane and Honeysuckle Lane South, which is a private road. It has a very narrow travel way, a gravel surface. And they came up with the locations of 7 poles that are just to the side of the traveled way. We located those stakes and put them on the plan so it would be, so we could see where they were going. All of Honeysuckle Lane and Honeysuckle Lane South are, the entire length is bordered by a wooded swamp on either side of the road. It also falls within land subject to coastal storm flowage. The 100-year flood elevation is 11. So between the wooded swamp, the flood zone, and the coastal bank confining the flood zone, pretty much all of, the entire layout is within the 50-foot buffer to some resource area. And so what we're showing here is simply the locations of those poles. There will be guy wires that will be installed as well. We've shown a limit of work around each of the poles and specified that a fabric silt fence will be installed prior to the work being commenced. The poles will be installed using a vehicle mounted auger. I'll be quite honest, I've never seen a utility pole being installed, so I can't say exactly how that works, but I have specified, obviously, as the auger advances, soil will be pulled up. I've specified that excavated soil be immediately removed, placed into a truck for removal, and not stockpiled anywhere on site. Once the pole and guy wires are installed, the disturbed areas will be stabilized and restored, loamed and seeded with a native grass mix. I think that's it. I guess the only other thing, the final pole will be on the Smythe's property next to their driveway, and from there the electric service will go underground across the driveway and into the building. Otherwise, all the electric service obviously will be installed overhead on the poles. This solution was arrived at by Eversource and the Smythes as the least intrusive way of getting the service from Stage Harbor Road to the property. So I think that's it. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And again, Dan Smythe is available as well and could provide any additional information as far as how they got to this point, because they were involved in the discussions for quite a while before I became involved. Thank you.
If I could add one, this is Dan Smythe, one clarifying point.
Go ahead, you may say something. Go ahead.
The electrical line was a deeded right, but when the deed got transferred in a prior transaction, that was not noted on the deed. And so one alternative for us is to get into a litigation battle with Mr. and Mrs. Roddy concerning that. Our lawyers advised us that the law can go either way on that situation. I could just read a section from an email that he sent to me about a year ago. We've been talking about this for 4 or 5 years. You do not currently have an easement over our property for your utility service, and we will not create any underground or aerial easements in the future for the service. We've been consistently clear about these facts. When you met with Eversource's engineer, Nick, he was under the mistaken assumption that the poles and transformer in the wetlands below our house were on our property. I have clarified that they are not. In turn, Eversource has no legal right to build a road over our property to access equipment on somebody else's property. Accessing our transformer is not an option for you, nor is stretching utility lines that cross any portion of our property. So we do not desire what we are doing. This is being forced upon us by our neighbor.
Okay. Thank you very much. We note that. All right, let's open up questions from commissioners.
Clark has a question.
Yes, Tom, go ahead.
I noticed under mitigation measures for the variance, basically the only thing you're proposing is you're putting the electric lines on poles instead of underground. Is there anything else you're proposing?
Just to restore whatever vegetation is disturbed during the installation. In coming up with the layout of the locations for the poles, I know the Eversource specialist, considered locating the poles in areas that were, open and will minimize how much vegetation has to be disturbed. So, he was conscientious about that.
I was wondering if there was anything that could be done to help reinforce the wetlands that the driveway travels through in order to decrease the chance of harm or damage to the roadway. For example, with elevated storm flowage.
I'm not, I guess I hadn't really given that any thought. I'm not sure what you're suggesting, raising the grade above the flood elevation?
No, plantings, just to basically help reinforce the bank around the roadway and so on in case of an unusually large intrusion, let's say of storm flowage. That was just a thought off the top of my head. I was just asking if you're proposing anything for the variance, if you're proposing anything more than the fact that you're putting the wires on poles instead of underground.
I am not proposing anything beyond that.
All right, thank you.
Other questions?
Bob Rawls.
Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, the narrative talks about one pole being land subject to coastal storm flowage, I think. And is that marked on the plan?
It's not marked. It's pole number 7, which is at the top of the plan, the first new pole. And
Okay.
that is within the land subject to coast land because it's at elevation roughly 8. The flood zone goes across the street there. So that's the pole that's within the 100-year flood zone.
Right. So you cited. Yeah.
I'm sorry, all the other ones are above the 11-foot contour.
Okay. You cited, I guess, town regs saying that for that pole, no variance is required. And so the implication is that the variance is required for the other 6 poles. Are there any, to your knowledge, regulations that cover putting poles in, such as not also being subject to regulations of various kinds, or are these basically we must seek a variance for those, just like we would for anything else?
I included that information in the narrative because your checklist requires the narrative to describe any other approvals that are required, for instance, if we had to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So knowing that one of the poles falls within the Conservancy District, which is part of zoning, I wanted to make sure, or I again, honestly didn't know, this never having come up with anything that I've dealt with before. So I looked into the zoning and the section on the Conservancy District and what uses are allowed in the Conservancy District, what uses require special permits, or which uses are prohibited within the Conservancy District. And I found that the installation of utilities in the Conservancy District is allowed. So I just included that information to demonstrate that no relief from zoning is necessary for the pole within the Conservancy District. All the other poles are outside of the Conservancy District, so aren't impacted by zoning.
Okay. I assume that the alternative to this are underground lines, and there's no third alternative?
And maybe Dan might be able to offer what other possible routes were considered by Eversource. But basically, between Stage Harbor Road, Champlain Road, I guess those are the main roads that in Honeysuckle Lane that abut or that surround this property. Between the house and those roads, any way you try to come in is wetland. So, and apparently at a great enough distance that, you know, they can't just string wires from an existing pole on one of those streets to this site. Any new lines from those roads to this property would involve some installation in one of the wetlands. So coming down the road, coming down Honeysuckle Lane and doing poles adjacent to the road was the only way that they could get wires to the property without disturbing any part of any of the wetlands, any of the resource area.
All right, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Bob. Other questions from other commissioners? I will note that unlike I was curious about this, Stephanie, so I went and checked because I would have expected to have found some sort of exemption in the Wetlands Bylaw and Wetlands Protection Act for the installation of electric utilities. And it turns out, as I looked at it, that the exemption is there, but it is limited to maintaining, repairing, or replacing existing facilities. That's in the Chatham bylaw, and in the state regulations, it says activities to maintain, repair, or replace, but not substantially change or enlarge existing utility services. So don't know why the installation is not covered, but that is why you guys are here. I don't know why that is. There must be a story behind that somewhere. I will also say that having watched Eversource go through last spring a process before the pandemic where they replaced probably about a third of the existing poles in the neighborhood where I live, took them out, the old rotten ones, and put in new ones. The process that you described sounds exactly right, what they did with the auger and the trucks moving behind and putting it in and backfilling and all of that. That is what I assume will be the exact same process that they will use here. Bob Del Vecchio, do you have anything? Any questions?
No, I don't, Janet. Thank you.
Okay. So does anybody have anything? I'm looking at my notes. I'm not seeing anything that we're asking for. Please jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, that we're asking for to be produced before we can go about the task of preparing an order of conditions. Is there does anybody speak now? Is there anybody who sees a need to continue this to next week for any further information? Hearing none. I would recommend that we continue this to the work session on September 2nd for the review of an order of conditions. Do we have a motion?
Yep. Bob Rawls moved to September 2nd work session for orders and conditions.
Do we have a second?
Oh, Clark seconds.
Thank you. Roll call vote to continue to the work session on September the 2nd. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Del Vecchio.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
I vote aye. So this is continued to the work session on September the 2nd. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, Paul, next on the agenda. Paul, you with us?
Yes, Madam Chair, sorry.
There you are. Okay, it's all right.
I hit my mute button there.
That mute button. Don't remember,
yes,
but you're just walking into a big
right.
button. Yep.
Yeah, I'd like to have one all the time, actually. So anyway, 74 and 77
Well,
Sears Point, Patrick Brogan and Patricia Black, SE10 3418, proposed construction of a new driveway to an existing guest house, implementation of a land management plan for invasive species control at 74 and 77 Sears Point, Assessors Map 11A, parcels 10B and 11. Revised plans have been received.
all right, thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
We got what I believe is the revised restoration plan showing. David and Seth, are you here?
Yes, we are present.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. We've received the revised land management plan and then restoration plan. Thank you both as well for the on-site and the tour and the review of the proposed mitigation area and the proposed driveway area. I will say, Seth, that the tree inventory that you have supplied has set a new standard in tree inventories in terms of the completeness, the thoroughness, and the usefulness of the information and the way it was presented. We're going to require this going forward. Everybody will hate you for that, but oh well. So why don't you walk us through what you submitted and bring us up to date?
Thank you. Yes, so and thank all of you who were able to attend on that hot day in the field. We had great attendance that day, and we appreciate that. I think I can mostly summarize, and I'll go into a little bit more detail with regard to activities around the proposed driveway and with the guest house, since that was a little less developed in the field, but there really haven't been any considerable changes since we reviewed the data for the extensive restoration here. It continues to be just shy of 30,000 square feet of additional vegetation that would link to the already previously proposed mitigation area, which is well underway. And that was approved under a separate order. To run just very quickly through what's proposed on the embankment, in addition to the complete removal of invasive species and the restoration planting, which is over 250 shrubs, 200 square feet of low bush blueberry, 910 grasses planted as plugs, 382 forbs planted as plugs, as well as seed mix and 6 trees, which would be pussy willow to replace the exotic willows that are down in that wetland area. The quick list of what we're proposing to manage in terms of trees, there would be 1 small tree and 8 saplings of black cherry, which we would propose to coppice. We think they'll have a much longer and more healthy life on this windy coastal bank if they're turned into multi-stemmed trees. There are some examples of those thriving at this site already, and they'll be less prone to wind throw in particular. We've also had some successful technique just down the road at a nearly 10-year-old project on Battlefield. There's 1 black oak sapling, which we're simply proposing to raise the crown. That will accelerate its growth upward, with the idea that there'll be a nice upper canopy and a limited view underneath. We are proposing to manage another black oak back into a single leader. There have been long-standing cultural practices, as you saw at the site visit, So the structure of these trees aren't ideal. So we would go back to a dominant single leader for one of those black oaks as identified in the field. And then we are proposing the removal of 6 trees and 4 saplings. Those are comprised of 5 non-native willow trees, 1 black cherry tree, which is fallen and roots are exposed, 1 non-native apple sapling, which is crowding other native species, an oak and a cherry, 2 non-native English oak saplings, which are also growing in proximity to other native trees, and then 1 invasive maple sapling, which is likely the progeny of some larger trees previously approved for removal on the site along the property line. And then I think that basically explains, because I covered the rest of the summary along the shoreline there. What we're proposing to mitigate for the proposed removal of 4 trees up by the guest house, where the drive under is desired, would be 3 cedar trees and 1 oak tree, replaced at a 2-to-1 ratio with 4 red maple trees and 4 swamp white oak. These would be large trees at 3 to 3.5 inch caliper. As you may know, but just for everyone's benefit, that those are usually, depending on the grower, anywhere between 15 and 25 foot trees. They're large, very large root balls. And we're also proposing to remove 1 sapling and replace this at a 3-to-1 ratio with 3 service berries, which would be 10 to 12 foot height at the time of planting. So with that, again, I think the site visit was productive. So the best thing for me at this point might be to just pause and see if the commission has any questions.
All right, thank you very much, Seth. Any questions on the proposed land management plan and restoration plan as revised?
Bob Rawls, I wanted to echo the chair's comments on the completeness of this restoration plan. It's very easy to follow, but very detailed. And yes, I think it'd be nice to use it as a model, but more to the point that it also seemed to me to do everything that was possible to preserve existing species there by coppicing, by removing limbs that allow them to grow better. All in all, it just struck me this as a very sound plan ecologically.
Thank you very much.
I do have on the restoration plan in the areas by the barn, or by the guest house, I mean, it would be good, as you did with the restoration area on the bank, to more clearly identify that those are restoration areas, or we used green, for example, on the bank, and just so that it's clear if in the future that those are mitigation plans and mitigation.
That's a good recommendation. We can certainly do that.
And then I also I typically talk about how these mitigation areas will be demarcated. And I know that along the coastal area, that's a long stretch, and I'm not sure that it's totally necessary in this particular case, but I just wonder whether or not that would be something that's feasible from your perspective.
That's an excellent point. We tried to actually along the shoreline where it's parallel to the harbor. You'll see we clustered a number of tightly spaced plants, including some thorny ones like rose, and some very dense growing like sweet fern. That with the idea that would provide that important symbolic definition, very effective from what I've seen with mowers, mower creep and issues like that, where we didn't propose that as it starts to turn and move in the direction of the path down to the beach, is where we're preserving these nice thickets of existing bayberry. So that's already there. So we're basically looking at this saying, this is really effective the way it is. Let's reproduce that. we could reproduce it with bayberry, but it frankly just takes a lot longer. In our experience, the Carolina rose and the sweet fern will colonize these areas, and then bayberry will likely move in over time as it's already present, as you saw on the site visit. So it's an excellent point, and our goal from a design standpoint was simply to bolster what's already there and seeming very effective with very dense plantings and connecting into existing stands.
Okay. Yeah. Madam Chair, are we going to break the questions into those about the restoration plan versus the?
Yeah, let's at the moment, let's hold any questions on
Okay.
the.
Then I'm done with mitigation.
And
Okay.
Madam Chair, I did omit one thing I meant to mention, if I could.
Yep.
There was a very good suggestion made at the site visit to address the Japanese knotweed, which has now invaded the corner of the wetland over by the existing barn. That has been added. We appreciate that recommendation. And so that is now part of this application. I realized I omitted that in my first presentation. Sorry.
That's okay, no problem. It's on the restoration plan, and we're appreciative of having that added. All right, other questions on the land management and restoration plan?
Janet, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Bob.
Seth, the large trees you're going to be planting, the maples and so forth, those are going to be huge, as you mentioned. Do you have any special ways those are going to be cared for, considering their size?
Yeah, excellent question, Bob. It starts with how they're installed. There's various slings which are used so the root ball isn't damaged and lowered into the hole. You do need a loader type piece of equipment. They're lowered into the hole, and then the root ball is prepared. After that, we always add some beneficial micro nutrients and beneficial mycorrhizal inoculants and fungal inoculants, which help with transplant shock, primarily by leaving mycelium around the root ball, which helps to retain moisture. Desiccation is usually the biggest threat for these transplants, because as the size of the tree increases, the proportion of roots that inevitably are removed also increases. And so there's cultural practices which are employed. I would note that for these trees, Schumacher, who's the landscaper, would likely install them given their size, and we've worked with them on many other projects and have found they're really the best at getting these large. They're frankly better than we are at getting these really large materials to thrive. In the sort of the first few years, the most important thing is that they're watered with usually a bubbler or very slow drip system, so that water has time to percolate through the root systems. As I mentioned, it's primarily a desiccation issue, and as you can imagine, they're pricey trees, so the owners are usually very motivated to make sure that they survive as well.
Yeah, so the drip's going to be on a timer?
Absolutely.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Seth, I'm looking at the timeline just to remind myself of when the installation of these trees is scheduled. Is that next fall of 2021?
I would say it could be as early as this spring. I would say spring or fall of 2021. The biggest issue just being the nearby construction traffic. We want to make sure that's completed. They're making good progress, and I wouldn't be surprised if the area was emptied of construction vehicles and activities by spring. But I would say fall at the latest.
Okay. All right. Hopefully, we'll have better rainfall conditions next year.
Couldn't be much worse.
That's. All right. Any other questions for Seth before we turn it over to David?
Clark?
Yes, Tom, go ahead.
I just want to echo the chair's and Bob's comments about the restoration plan. It really is excellent and definitely should be the standard of performance for all plans.
Now
That's
I'm
it.
definitely going to hear about this from my colleagues.
I know.
Glad I'm remote.
Yeah, right. You don't see all the dirty looks that are being shot in your direction.
We do appreciate it, though.
All right, thanks. All right, we can keep using this plan because it's built on the site plan, so there's no reason to change it. I have a couple of questions to direct to David. Thanking you as well for the on-site and the walking us through the proposal for this driveway to access the underground parking area. Just as a quick reminder to myself, we're talking about what the impact here of this is 88 square feet of impact in the no disturb zone and 1,372 square feet in the outer aura, both for the driveway construction as it's currently configured. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Mark, if you can zoom in a little bit on where it says proposed driveway. We don't need the mitigation area anymore. Keep going. You can do it one more and maybe one more. So just to confirm again, the retaining wall is marked on the north side of the proposed driveway. Is there also going to be a retaining wall on the other side?
A very short one, not about, I'd say a little less than half the length of the other one. And that's just to facilitate getting a set of stairs from the upper level down to the lower level. But the rest of it will be regraded.
So, oh, okay, I see there. I see the stairs that are. Okay. All right. Other questions? Oh, David, there were no changes since the on this part of the plan. So, do you have anything further, or I'm just going to open it to questions?
No, I don't have anything further.
Okay. Questions and comments from commissioners?
Clark.
Yes, Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, for David. Between all the various plans, when I was adding them up last night and looking at them, I came up with 4 different configurations for the driveway. And then, confusion reigned, of course, because we got a drawing last night with 2 options noted on it. In all honesty, I have no idea what driveway configuration you're going with, because of all the plans that have been tossed our way. Have you settled on one?
Yes, we have. It's the only site plan prepared, official site plan submitted for the filing from Clark Engineering. So that.
Okay, so that doesn't include the 2 options that were on the drawing that were filed with us last night?
No, there was an issue with the original submittal in that in my narrative and variance requests, I talked about alternatives. Somehow the alternatives sketch plan didn't get circulated to the commissioners. Janet kindly reminded me yesterday that we were still waiting for that. So that's the plan that was sent last night, showing 2 alternatives. Alternative 2 was the one that shows access to the lower
Hold
level.
on, David, I'm going to interrupt you. Mark, can you click to the next tab there? That's the one that he's talking about. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, David.
So, alternative 2 is not a proposed driveway. It's not what we're considering, but it is an alternative showing how we could provide access to the lower area and stay out of the no disturb zone. I think in the narrative, I said it was 300 or 400 extra square feet of site coverage within the 50 to 100 in order to achieve that. And it's not a proposal that we want to pursue.
Okay, I had one other question. When we were out enjoying the benefits of your excellent excursion around the property showing things to us. I noticed as we got back to the barn area, there was discussion about I call it a hillock, that would have to be graded. I didn't see anything in any of the plans or diagrams that gave us any idea about what that grading would look like, how much soil would be disturbed. And since that is occurring at least in part in the no disturb zone, I think that's something that would be important, an important information bit that we would need to evaluate the site proposal.
So the official
Commissioner
site plan does show proposed grades on both sides of the driveway going into the garage. So the solid lines with the 16, 18, 20, and 22 boxes are proposed grades. Underneath that are dashed lines showing the existing grades. And so we're showing how that slope is being cut back on the south side of the driveway, and we're minimizing the regrading on the north side by the addition of the retaining wall.
Yeah, I would note that because a retaining wall is used, it really minimizes the amount of regrading necessary. It's basically just a cut, and then the wall takes care of most of the regrading, and essentially keeps it all within the 51 to 100, which is beneficial, I think, with that design. But it is also shown on our plan. There's a lot going on there, so it's a little hard to see, but it's those solid lines.
Yeah, there is a lot going on there. Say the least.
Can I jump in for a second? This is Mary.
Yes, Mary.
Could you just repeat again which alternative we are using or discussing?
We're the plan that's showing on the screen shows two alternative locations and configurations for the driveway that were considered as part of the alternatives analysis, and they were both rejected in that analysis for the reasons that it stated. But this is just the drawing that shows what they were.
Okay, so the site plan of record is going to be David Clark's plan dated 3/12/2020?
So far, yep. Unless it gets revised. So just hang on, we're gonna keep going through this.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, Tom, any other questions?
No, that was it.
Okay. Other commissioners, other questions, comments?
Yeah, Bob Rawls. Could David or whoever to summarize again the reason for this request for the driveway to the guest house? I've actually heard a couple of different reasons given. I just wanted to hear it again.
Well, primarily, the owners want a distinct separation from the two uses, the guest house and the main house. The original proposal had access to the guest house from the upper level, so it would be a kind of a shared driveway. So, in addition, they wanted additional places to get a vehicle out of the weather. So the rationale is to create a separate driveway for the guest house and provide a garage space without having to build an additional structure up there.
So this would be for storing cars, parking cars.
Yes.
And so the area shown in alternative 1, what would that be like? Would that be also driveway? And
it would be a driveway, but it would not provide access to a garage. So
it'd be parking area.
Somewhat of a separate driveway. We didn't get really into a detailed analysis, but somewhere on the upper level there would have been a separate driveway with parking areas and landscaping in between the two from the primary residence and the guest house. But that alternative does not provide access to a garage for the guest house.
Okay. Yeah, no questions, further questions at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or comments? I have a question, David. So alternative 2, which keeps the driveway and the impact out of the no disturb zone, the narrative says it increases coverage in the outer aura, but doesn't specify how much. And I thought I just heard you say 300 to 400 square feet. Is that?
Yeah, it's about a 40-foot extra length of driveway. So at 10 feet wide or so, that's what I said. It's probably over 400.
Okay. And what was the reason that alternative was not pursued?
Well, because it increases coverage, it congests the area a little more. So basically, that's the reason. We figured that connecting it to the barn access was the shortest route because that area is already disturbed.
Yep. Okay. All right.
Can I jump in, Janet, just for
Yeah, go ahead. I'm just looking at my
follow
notes.
that? I thought I heard at the on-site that the barn was going to go away, and then I think I've heard later that it was going to stay. Which of the two?
It's never been considered to remove the barn.
So it's going to stay.
That was
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from anybody?
I got a question, Janet.
Bob, go ahead.
On the material for the driveway, what was that supposed to be again?
It'll be either stone shell or a stone shell mixer.
Okay. And there's definitely like a 300 to 400 square foot difference between the alternative 1 and alternative 2 between surface area.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Between alternative 2 and the proposed driveway location, which on the site plan we're looking at right now is underneath it. The original proposal is the one that goes off the spur heading toward the barn and the existing and then turns.
Yes.
That crosses the no disturb zone, and that's what results in 88 square feet of impact in the no disturb zone. So I think that's really the heart of the question for the commission is it's a balancing of whether we will accept 88 square feet of disturbance in a no disturb zone, which requires that we make all the findings that are necessary for the issuance of a variance, versus staying out of the no disturb zone with the result of a 400 or so square foot impact in the outer aura. Anybody have any thoughts on what your views are about that question?
Yeah, Bob,
I do.
No.
Oh, go ahead, Bob.
No, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, this will come as no surprise. I think if there's an alternative to, anytime there's an alternative to intruding into the no disturb zone, that it shouldn't occur.
Okay. Bob, what were you going to say?
Well, I guess what we would typically need to see or want to see is a compelling reason to allow intrusion into the NDZ. And what I see here, I mean, I can sort of see the desires on the part of the applicant, but nothing comes across to me as being particularly compelling, a compelling reason other than to leverage the existing driveway that's going to the barn. So I can't come up with a reason to say, sure, go into the D and Z in this particular case. And that's what I'm looking for is a more compelling rationale.
David
Okay.
Clark here.
Yep.
The area we're talking about is separated from the wetland by the driveway access to the barn. So it provides very little protections to the interests of the regulations. And by staying out of the no disturb zone, all we're doing is shifting that activity literally 10 feet to the east and increasing it by 400 square feet. So I think the interests that are protected by the regulations are better served by allowing the variance, because at the end of the day, there's less site coverage within the buffer zone to the BBW.
I would add to that I also would just hope that the commission would look at the project, the filing in its entirety. There is, more than your average amount of restoration being proposed here. So we're hoping that is weighed equally as well.
Okay. Bob Delvecchio, you have any thoughts?
It's a tough one. We don't want to set a precedent, but I guess when you look at the alternative 2 and the amount of coverage there compared to alternative 1, I guess I would go with alternative 1 since there's less coverage and more planting involved. Thanks.
Okay. Well,
One more follow-up,
yes,
Janet.
go ahead.
That is that comparing the preferred proposal versus alternative 2, do we have an understanding of the number of trees that would be removed for alternative 2?
For alternative 2 would be the same number of trees, because the trees that are being requested to be removed are all within the maneuvering area to get into the garage.
Same number, okay.
Okay. My preference is to take this to a deliberation next week, and put it to a vote after we've all thought about it a bit more, and what the order of conditions, which direction it will go, and then schedule it for the work session on September the 2nd. Unless David and Seth, you prefer for me to take a straw poll right now and see where the commission is coming out.
Just think about that for a second. I guess we could take a straw poll, and then if the commission isn't in favor of this, we'll have to put it back on the applicant to see if they want to withdraw the project.
All right. So the question I'm going to put.
That would be the entire project.
Sorry, say that again.
So if the client chooses to withdraw, we would be withdrawing the entire project.
Oh, I understand that. So if the commission voted a preference to pursue alternative 2 for the driveway configuration, that you're saying you would have to go back to the client with that as what the commission would be prepared to, and at that point, they make the decision whether to accept that or withdraw. Do I have that right?
Right.
Okay. All right. So, commissioners, we do not know whether the homeowner would be prepared to pursue alternative 2. they have the option of electing to withdraw. And so with that in mind, I'm going to do a straw poll to see whether you believe this could be approved as proposed, or you would want to require alternative 2. And I'll start with Commissioner Rawls.
I was afraid you were going to do that.
Yeah, well, you're first on my list. I'm not going to go out of order.
Yeah, I mean, this is very difficult. I would prefer, I don't know. I mean, I think technically speaking, alternative 2 is what we would normally be in favor of, and I still haven't heard a great reason why we would not prefer that one over the proposal, the actual proposal. And the applicant has already, or Dave has already thrown down the possibility of withdrawing that very large mitigation area if they can't get the proposal that they want, which is unfortunate. So I don't know exactly how I would vote, but leaning towards alternative 2, but I'm not, that's not set in stone for me at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Bob Delvecchio, where you stand?
By choosing alternative 1, would there be more coverage of vegetation on site?
To be clear, it's not alternative 1 as you see it on the plan. That was a alternative that they looked at for providing just a parking area without any garage access. The proposal is for the driveway to come off the existing driveway. As you see, if you forget about alternative 1 and 2 that you see, look underneath those, which is on David's original site plan for the proposed driveway. It heads toward the barn where it exists and then turns toward the guest house. So that's the preferred alternative that the homeowner is asking us to approve.
Okay, well, as if we proposed alternative 2, would there be less vegetation or more vegetation than the site that the homeowner wants?
Well, David said there'd be no difference in the number of trees that have to be removed. It would stay at 5. And I don't think there's any other vegetation in that area because it's all so disturbed right now due to the ongoing construction. I don't think there's any existing vegetation.
Okay.
I mean, I could be wrong. I don't.
And that's true, David?
Yes, Janet's correct. I'd like to add one more thing. This site is almost 4 acres in size, this construction site. And we are occupying very little of it with this overall project. And there are tremendous areas of wetlands to the north of us that will remain undisturbed. And I think this is a very modest request given the size of the entire property and what they gave up in the past when they demolished the existing house, the previous house. I think they've made tremendous concessions to honor the no disturb zone on the east side of the property back when the old house was demolished. And I think this is a very small ask considering everything that's going on out here.
All right, thank you. So Bob, where does that leave you in your thinking? I keep coming back.
I would say I don't know. I'd have to think about it, Janet.
I accept. I totally get that. David, if does alternative 2 require regrading along that area where it drops from 22 down to 18?
Yeah, I haven't looked at the grading yet, but obviously we got to get from a higher elevation down to the proposed garage level.
Okay, so you have an
we're
engineer.
grading.
Yeah.
Yeah, we might need a retaining wall on the right side of the driveway to limit the amount of regrading.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, I'll, for my 2 cents, as I'm sitting here today, I am generally loath to depart from the standards, and staying out of the no disturb zone is a real principle that we adhere to. But given the bigger picture of what's happening here, and at the end of my analysis, I think about what the impact to the resource area and what is best, how the protected interests are best served. I would fall on the side of granting the variance and minimizing the impact to the 88 square feet of already highly disturbed, no disturb zone, on the landward side of the existing barn. And it would fall to me to figure out, just to be very clear about how that would, I would propose that would be justified, knowing that, it is a departure. And I hear everybody, their statements that we don't do departures easily or thoughtlessly. But because I've heard a lot of uncertainty still from other commissioners, I'm going to go back to my proposal, which is that the commission continue this till next week on the 19th, where we will have some time to think about it. And I would ask everybody to come prepared to give an indication of where you do stand, so that the way forward to September 2nd work session is clear.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Tom.
I just wanted to make 2 observations. One, I don't blame David for throwing down the gauntlet, although I think it's really déclassé and not appropriate for this kind of hearing or action. But anyway, I don't think that's really the way we should do things. But secondly, what's happening here, which troubles me, is that the commission is being blamed for what is basically a design flaw. I mean, this is an incredible site. It's very large. As we saw when we did the site inspection, the work being done is really quite aesthetically pleasing and so on. And the proposal for the plantings and so on is, as we've all noted, very excellent. But I'm troubled by the fact that here we are at the last minute, and it's clear that the attempt is being made to blame the commission for something that is a design flaw. They had 4 acres of space. They had tons of time. They had, high quality architects and landscape designers helping them. There's no reason that this problem should exist other than the fact that they didn't think about it to the last minute. And so I'm very troubled that we're being blamed for something that really is a design flaw by the owner.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you for that. I don't necessarily perceive that we're being blamed for anything, but yeah, whatever. And I think the homeowner plays the cards they're dealt. So with that, I would ask for a motion to continue this to next week, when we will be making a final decision about which way to proceed. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Bob Rawls move that we move to the next, is it work session?
No, next to continue to August 19th.
August 19th for further deliberation on the
Correct.
on the proposal.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Clark seconds.
All right, roll call vote to continue to August 19th. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Vecchio.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. It's continued to next week for deliberation and decision.
Thank you all very much. I
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. Paul, next one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 305 Main Street, Timothy C. Emerson, Revocable Trust, care of Peter Emerson, Susan Gordon, trustee SE 103393, proposed demolition of cottage, construction of new cottage, construction of a building addition to a single-family home at 305 Main Street, assessors map 16, parcel 33.
All right, thank you. So the applicant has requested a continuance to October 14th. So do we have a motion?
Sorry, yes, Bob Rawls.
That's okay. You're speaking into the nether world. Yeah,
Searching
unmute.
for the unmute button.
Searching for that button.
Motion to move to, what was it, October 14th?
Okay, thank you. Second? Tom, we seconding?
Sorry, I didn't realize I had been secretly muted. Second.
Roll call vote to continue 305 Main Street to October 14th. Commissioner Rawls,
Aye.
Delvecchio,
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
I would aye as well. Unanimous approval to take that to October 14th. All right, Paul, next. We have certificates of compliance.
Yes, we do. The first is 96 Tilapy Run, SE 103085, certificate of compliance request for the completion of work relating to the construction of a pool, patio, and mitigation planning. I had an opportunity to visit the site yesterday, spent a considerable amount of time there. The project was to construct a swimming pool, metal fence around the area, a spa and pergola, an outside shower, outside fireplace. Didn't find the fireplace, but I don't think that is very significant. Additional patios, white solid wood fencing, walkways, and a concrete pad for a generator. The total increase in the aura was 1,600 square feet and hardscape within the 50 to 100 foot buffer zone. There was a previous order for the project allowing this to be done, but the previous owner did not go forward, so this applicant went forward, and I think the order was issued in 2015. The plan included 1,675 square feet of mitigation plantings in the aura gradient of the pool within the NDZ, and 106 native wood species and 9 native grasses along the slope of the 0 to 50 conservation buffer zone. It was, the landscape plan was done by Yarmouth Port Design Pool Landscape, and I did check with David yesterday. I think, David, are you on the line still?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so David was able to get me verification that in 2016, the plantings were installed, and so they have survived for a period of 3 years, and there is a condition in the order requiring that. I found the plants to be very healthy. They were all there. It's been extremely well maintained. It almost looks like on a daily basis somebody's going in there. The hardscape was where it was supposed to be. There wasn't anything on the site that went beyond the order that was issued. I recommend approving the project, and the email I got this morning was from Robert Bloomer at Ocean Edge Landscape Design. I guess he was contracted to do the actual work, and he stated he did it in August 2016. I think that's pretty much it. Just let me look through this one more time. There is an ongoing condition on page 11G of the order regarding no herbicides or pesticides shall be used in the aura to the wetland resource area, and the condition shall remain in force permanently and should be recorded with a certificate of compliance. I didn't see anything else that regarding an ongoing condition. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them. The property was gated, and David was able to get me the code, so I was able to get in and do a pretty thorough inspection of it. Looks good. I think it's in compliance. He submitted his check sheet. I went through everything in the file. Everything that is required to be submitted for a COC was submitted. That's about it.
All right, thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. That's thorough. Anybody have any questions for Paul?
Yes, Bob Rawls, this is an as-built plan that was submitted, and it does not, I assume, yeah, it does not include what was the fireplace that was originally requested, so
Yeah.
I assume that we would note somewhere that that aspect of the original NOI was not completed.
Yeah, Commissioner, I'd agree with that. David, I informed David yesterday I couldn't find it. It looks like they made some little cubby hole in the wall over by the generator that's serving some other purpose right now, but I just didn't see the fireplace. I looked for it, couldn't find it. Everything else was installed, but that was the only thing I couldn't find. So, but we would probably make some, notation in the certificate that couldn't be constructed.
Right, okay, thanks.
Yep.
All right, is there a motion to approve the request for certificate of compliance?
Bob Rawls, motion to approve the certificate of compliance.
Thank you. Is there
Clark,
a second?
second.
Thank you. Roll call vote to approve the certificate of compliance for 96 Tulipy Run. Commissioner Rawls,
Aye.
Delvecchio,
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Unanimous approval for that certificate. All right,
Okay,
Paul.
thank
Next.
you.
Yep.
Next is 50 Horseshoe Lane, SE 10-2507, certificate of compliance request for completion of work related to view pruning and mitigation planting. The permit was issued in 2008, so it's a very old permit. Apparently the house is for sale. I did go out and inspect it. David submitted photos. I'm just going to read basically from the order that was issued. This was a view shed request. So a path with stairs leads from the top of the bank and divides into the east and west sections. In the east section, 2 oaks near the top of the bank are to be pruned and the area selectively limbed for windows of a view from the house and deck. Near the top of the bank, below the existing English ivy, native woody plants are to be planted as mitigation pruning. In the west section, 1 oak at the bottom of the bank is to be removed, 2 oaks near the top of the bank are to be pruned, and the bank is to be selectively trimmed for windows of a view. Apparently the commission decided that at the top of the bank, the vegetation could be lower, but down when you get toward the bottom of the bank, they did not want it to be cut down to the ground level or just a couple of feet. So the photographs that David submitted clearly show that they're kind of in compliance with that. Well, they are actually. I wasn't really able to look to see whether the trees that were removed were there. This is such an old order that the wood is, the tree stumps have even rotted out. There's a lot of ivy growing up there. But I would say basically that they're in compliance. The woody plants that were planted there, I did see those, but again, it's been a long time since this has been really looked at or maintained. Probably some cutting was done a while back, but just to maintain that upper level cut. But I believe it's in compliance, and again, he submitted all the requirements under the certificate of compliance checklist. I don't know if David wants to add anything, but I'd recommend approval. There is a staircase leading to the bottom of the bank that abuts a marsh. It is rotted and old and doesn't go anywhere, so we ought to indicate that that can't be redone or maintained unless a new order is sought. There was a condition in the order that the ability to do this work on the bank was limited to the owner as long as he maintained possession of the property. If he sells the property, then they're going to have to come back with a new application for maintaining this bank the way that it's currently maintained. So it runs with the owner of the property. Once he conveys it, that's the end of, you know, the work that's done on the bank. So we want to indicate that in the certificate as well. And there's one ongoing condition: no herbicides or pesticides shall be used in the aura or the wetland resource area. So that will be incorporated into the COC, and I would recommend approval. And David, do you have anything to add with your submission?
No, I think you covered everything. Thank you.
Okay, all right.
All right, thank you,
That's it.
Paul. Questions?
Welcome.
Anybody have questions? So Paul, this property is being sold, correct? That's what you
Yeah,
said?
yeah, David can elaborate on it. There's a for sale sign out in front of the property.
Okay, so we can expect the new owner to be at some point in the not too distant future submitting an application to continue managing the bank in the way that it had been. So we'll deal with that later. Any other comments or questions? Motion to approve the certificate of compliance?
Bob Rawls, a motion to approve the certificate of compliance.
Clark, second.
Thank you. Roll call vote to approve the certificate of compliance for 50 Horseshoe Lane. Commissioner Rawls,
Aye.
Delvecchio,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That certificate is approved.
Thank you.
And Paul, from me, as far as I can tell, that's the end of my agenda. Do you have anything else? Am I missing anything?
No, I think that's it. These other hearings have been rescheduled.
Yep. Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Bob Rawls, I move to adjourn.
Clark, second.
Thank you. Roll call vote to adjourn. Commissioner Rawls,
Aye.
Delvecchio,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
I vote aye. We adjourn at 11:06 a.m.